CLI for a pizza delivery company application. Let's see how it works. I'm starting the application. I can see that the CLI is running. So now to view all the commands available, I'm going to pass in man command. Now you get the table with all the commands available. Let's go with help, and I get the same table. Now I'm going to fetch the menu, and here I get the list of all the pizzas and some additional information such as the price. Let's now list the orders. Now you can see I get information about orders that were placed within the last 24 hours. Let's now take a look at one of them. I'm going to copy the ID of one of the orders and pass in more order info. So as you can see, the ID was the parameter, it was fetched, and the data displayed is only for this particular order. Let's now list the users. I get the list of users that sign in within the last 24 hours. Now I'm going to fetch the data about this one particular user. And here you go, I get the information. Let's try to fetch a user that doesn't exist. I get an error saying that the user data doesn't exist, the email doesn't exist, or there was an error reading the user data. So let's now jump into the code. So now let's go ahead and check out the code. So to enable the CLI, I needed to initialize it within the initialization function for my whole application. Over here you can see that I'm initializing the CLI and making sure that it starts as the last one before or after the workers and after the server. So everything that I need to have is going to be in one file called CLI.js. So in here you can see I got a few parts: core functions, input handlers, responders, some helper functions, a class, and dependencies. So let's go to the core functions. The first function is initialization. First I'm printing out that the CLI is running. Then I'm creating an interface. I'm starting the prompt, and then I set that when the user puts in a line, then I'm going to process whatever the user puts in, and I'm reinitializing the prompt. And when the user closes the interface, I'm going to kill the process and with 0. That means that there were no errors. So now let's go ahead and look at the process input. So I'm taking a look at the string that the user put in. I'm checking that it is indeed a string and has a length of at least 1. Then I have this array of the commands available, and I'm checking if the string that the user put in is either of those. If so, then I'm emitting an event. If not, I'm printing out that the command is invalid. So let's see that E object. It's created in here in the classes. It is basically an events class that is extended in my file. So when the user emits an event, I'm going to respond with so-called responders. So you can see that each command has their own event, and I'm evoking the method in the responders. So let's go ahead and start with help. In help, I got basically an object that got the list of commands and a short description. Afterwards, I'm showing a header, and for each of the commands, I'm printing out the key and the value in different colors. When it comes to exit, I'm just killing the process with the same number, 0, meaning no errors. Now let's go to the menu. In the menu, I'm fetching the menu with the JSON API, and I have the array of pizzas as the response. Then I'm calculating the maximum length of pizza name, the longest one. Then I'm creating a header, which includes the names of the headers of the information I want to include. And then I'm printing out table using this print out table helper method. I'm putting in how the table is called, my headers, my data, and the function that determines how a particular row is going to be rendered. Let's go and check it out now. So here I'm validating if the title, the data, and the getLighterLine are valid, if the data is a function, if the data is an array, and if the title is a string. Then I'm printing out the title. If the header is set, I'm going to print it too. And afterwards, I have a loop that gets the data, how it's rendered, from that function that was passed in, and I'm printing out in color. Let's now take a look at list users. First, I'm sending a message to debug what I'm doing. Afterwards, I'm listing all of the files in the users folder, and I'm iterating for each one of them. But first, I'm creating a container for the users' emails to be printed out. Then I'm fetching yesterday from the helpers method, which basically just gets the date that it's now and subtracts 1 day. Then I'm trying to read the user's file. If that succeeds, then I'm fetching the signed in date, which is within that file. I'm sending a message to the debug, and then I'm comparing the creation date with yesterday. If the user was created within the last 24 hours, then I'm going to add them to my array users to print out, or I'm going to continue if the array already contains that email. If it doesn't, then I'm printing out user data using this helper method. Let's now take a look at more user info. At first, I'm trying to get the parameter passed because I need the user's email. If that's met, then I'm going to try to read the file for that user. If that succeeds, then I'm using again the same helper method to print out the user data. Otherwise, I'm printing out an error that the user might not exist. Let's take a look at list orders. First, I'm printing out what I'm doing. Afterwards, I'm listing all of the orders in my folder. If that succeeds, then I'm going to again get the yesterday's exact date. I'm going to iterate through each of the order. I'm going to try to fetch the information about the order. If that succeeds, then I'm getting the creation date, which is the ID of the order made into the date. If that creation date was within the last 24 hours, I'm going to print out the order data using this helper method. So as you can see, at first I'm getting the currency sign from the configuration file. Afterwards, I'm printing a vertical space, a horizontal half line, and the information using the same print a column in color method. And the last method is more order info, and at first I'm going to fetch the parameter put in by the user. If that succeeds, then I'm going to try to fetch the information about the order from the orders folder. If that succeeds, then I'm printing out the order data using the helper method. Otherwise, I'm printing the error that the order ID might not exist, or that there was an error reading the order. So that's it for me. Thank you.